I still remember the first time I heard the logbook audio from the abandoned vessel. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was almost gentle, like someone speaking through water that never fully left their lungs. The voice came in and out, wrapped in static, describing coordinates that no longer existed on any modern map. I was alone in the coastal archive that night, surrounded by shelves of rusted maritime records and broken compasses that no longer pointed anywhere real. The wind outside pressed softly against the windows, like it was trying to listen in. They told me these ships were gone forever, disappeared without distress signals, without wreckage, without reason. And yet, years later, they came back. Not all at once, but one by one, drifting into harbors they had left decades ago. Crews still aboard, engines still warm, but no one remembered where they had been. When I first saw the footage of one of them returning, it looked wrong in a quiet way. The ocean around it was too still, the light around it too pale, as if reality had briefly forgotten how to behave. And when the camera zoomed in, every window on the ship was filled with motionless figures standing exactly where they should not have survived. That's when I realized something terrifying. Some journeys don't end at sea. They loop back, and I was about to find out where they really went. The coast station was almost empty that night. Only the hum of old radio equipment filled the room, soft and uneven, like something breathing through metal. Rain pressed against the tall glass windows. Thin streaks of water ran down like slow-moving fingers, distorting the dark ocean outside. I remember the clock ticking too loudly, too sharp for such a quiet place. Then the radio shifted. A faint crackle, followed by a voice that didn't belong to any channel I knew. Not broken, not distant. Clear, it gave coordinates first. Slow, careful, like it was remembering how to speak. My hand stopped halfway to the console. The air felt heavier, colder, like the room had leaned closer to listen. Those coordinates matched open sea, but there was nothing out there, nothing registered for decades. Still, the signal continued, and then the name came through. A ship lost 40 years ago. A vessel declared gone without wreckage, without reason. I felt my throat tighten without knowing why. Outside the window, the ocean should have been moving, but it wasn't. It looked wrong. Too still, too smooth, like a dark sheet stretched across something holding its breath. I checked radar. Once. Then again. At first there was nothing. Then a shape appeared. Small at first, then undeniable. A vessel entering territorial waters with no origin point behind it. No trail, no wake, no path, just arrival. The screen flickered as I leaned closer. Static crawled along the edges of the display, like it didn't want to show me the full image. The ship's registry matched the missing file exactly. Same name, same identification code, same silence attached to its history. But that wasn't possible. My fingers hovered over the alert system, but I didn't press it. Something about the sea outside made me hesitate, as if even urgency would be heard too loudly. The water remained flat, not calm in a natural way, calm like observation, like it was waiting to see what I would do next. The radar beep repeated once. Slow, steady, patient. The vessel was closer now. Too close. Through the window, I should have seen it already. But the horizon remained empty. Only fog sat there, thin, pale, moving without wind. Then the radio crackled again. Same voice, same clarity, but now closer. It repeated the ship's name once more. Softly, almost gently, like recognition, like memory returning. I felt something in the room shift, not physically, more like the space between objects had changed. The lights above me flickered once, slowly, reluctantly, and in that brief dimness, I thought I heard it, not through the radio, not through the speakers. Outside, a low presence in the water, moving without waves, without disturbance. I turned toward the window. The fog had thickened, closer now, pressing against the glass like breath. And in it, something darker formed. A shape that didn't belong to weather. Long silent, waiting just beyond visibility. The radar gave one final update. Distance closing. No deceleration. No deviation. I should have called it in. I know that now. But my hand didn't move, because the sea outside was no longer just water. It felt aware, and as the signal repeated the ship's name one last time, I realized something worse. The voice wasn't searching for the vessel. It was announcing its return, and I was the first to hear it. The night shifted strangely after the signal, not in weather, not in temperature, but in direction, like the world had turned slightly without telling anyone. I was transferred to a coastal mapping unit just after dawn. The building smelled of old paper and salt trapped in metal drawers. Every screen flickered with half-updated charts that refused to settle. That's when it appeared. A harbor. It wasn't there yesterday. Not in any archive. Not in any satellite feed. But now it sat on the map like it had always existed. Hidden between known routes. Folded into empty sea. The coastline around it looked soft. Blurred. Like someone had drawn it too many times. I zoomed in. Fog covered everything. Thick and motionless. Not drifting. Not changing. Just present. A forgotten harbor where nothing should have been built. Reports came in before I even asked. Fishermen speaking in low voices outside the station. They said the sea had started glowing at night. Not bright, just enough to notice. Like something breathing underwater. Then came the buoys. Old navigation buoys far offshore. Inactive for years. Now ringing. Not with wind. Not with waves. But with steady, repeating tones. As if something below was answering them. I joined a small patrol that evening. The boat engine felt too loud against the silence of open water. The farther we went, the less the compass made sense. North stopped being fixed. It shifted like it was unsure of itself. The ocean around us grew smoother. Too smooth, like glass stretched over something deep and unseen. And then the fog arrived. Not from the horizon. From everywhere at once. It swallowed distance. It swallowed direction. We should have turned back. But the harbor was already ahead of us. We didn't see it form. We only realized we had entered it. Structures rose faintly through the mist. Wooden edges, rusted frameworks, docks stretching into water that didn't ripple. But nothing was fully visible. Everything stayed just out of reach. And beneath the surface light, faint, pale, moving slowly in patterns that felt intentional. Something massive was docked there. Not a ship in the normal sense. More like presence shaped into form. No one spoke. Even breathing felt careful. The compass spun until it stopped entirely, pointing nowhere. Then the buoys began ringing again. Closer now, as if we were inside their sound. One of the crew leaned over the rail, but stopped halfway, because the water below wasn't reflecting us correctly. It showed movement that didn't match our own. Something beneath the harbor shifted, slow, deep, and the fog thickened as if reacting. We left immediately. No discussion, no hesitation. But when we turned back, the harbor was still there, even as it faded behind us, still existing in the corner of vision, like it never needed us to stay, only to find it once. They boarded the return vessel at first light. The sea was still too calm, like it was recovering from something it refused to explain. The ship had entered port silently. No announcement, no signal, just arrival. Its hull was weathered, but not broken, as if time had touched it without committing fully. The inspectors went aboard carefully, footsteps echoing across metal decks that felt too cold for morning sun. Inside, it smelled wrong. Not decay, not rot, stale air preserved too long, like a room sealed and forgotten mid-breath. And then they found the crew, alive, standing in formation below deck, completely still, uniforms clean, outdated, perfectly pressed like they had just been issued, but the faces, no aging, no change, as if 30 years had passed around them instead of through them. One inspector stepped forward. His voice tried to stay professional, but it didn't last. The crew turned slowly, all at once, too synchronized to feel natural. Their eyes were open, but unfocused, like they were looking through time instead of at it. They spoke eventually, slow, measured, each word placed carefully, like it had been rehearsed for decades. They said they did not know where they had been, not in confusion, but in certainty. as if the question itself was unfamiliar. The air grew heavier the longer they spoke. Not threatening, just wrong. Like listening to a memory that didn't belong to you. One inspector asked about the years lost. The crew didn't respond immediately. Instead, they looked downward, not in shame, but in absence. Then they said something that made the room feel colder. They had not been gone. They had been continuing. The word didn't belong in normal speech. It lingered too long in the silence after. No one knew what to ask next, because the crew didn't seem like survivors, and didn't seem like victims either. They seemed paused, like something had stopped them mid-sentence and forgotten to start them again. When the inspectors finally left, no one spoke on deck. Even the sea outside looked quieter than before, as if it had heard everything. Samples were taken immediately, from the hull, from the lower decks, from places no one wanted to touch twice. The material looked normal at first. Dark residue, salt buildup, marine staining. But under analysis, it changed. Not physically, not visibly, but in how it behaved under observation. The water samples refused to stay still in containers. They shifted slowly, like something inside them was remembering motion. Lab lights flickered when placed too close. Monitors glitched without warning, and then the audio began. At first, it was dismissed as interference, static trapped in equipment, but it wasn't random. It formed rhythm, almost speech, soft, layered, like voices speaking through distance that wasn't measured in space. A researcher leaned closer to the recording device, too close, and stopped suddenly, because beneath the static, something said their name. Not clearly, not loudly, but with certainty, like it had been stored there for a long time. The room went quiet immediately after. Even machines seemed to hesitate. Attempts to isolate the sample failed. Every containment field introduced new interference. Every filter made the voices clearer, not louder, clearer, as if removing distance only made them more real. One technician tried to shut everything down, but the system restarted itself. Not once, repeatedly. Each reboot showing slightly different readings, different times, different depths, as if the water contained multiple versions of itself. Then came the final observation. The residue wasn't just reacting. It was responding, to being studied, to being remembered. And somewhere in the noise of the lab, the ocean outside the building made a sound that no one could record properly, because it wasn't sound at all. It was recognition. The logbook arrived sealed in a rusted case, old metal damp edges, and a smell like salt left too long in closed air. It was placed on my desk without ceremony. No explanation, no warning, just instructions to read it carefully. When I opened it, the pages were dry, too dry for something recovered from the sea. The handwriting inside was neat, controlled, almost too perfect for a captain lost 40 years ago. The first entry described open water, standard coordinates, calm seas. But when I looked again, the coordinates had changed, not smudged, not overwritten, replaced. I blinked and checked again. Different numbers now. The same page. The same ink, but a different ocean entirely. The room felt tighter suddenly, like the air had leaned in closer. I turned the page. The next entry mentioned places that should not exist. Harbors with no land. Lights beneath oceans that had no floor. And then a phrase repeated through the lines. The return route. It appeared again and again, each time written slightly differently, as if the meaning was slipping even as it was recorded. That night, I locked the logbook away. But the next morning, it was back on my desk, open, new pages added, not bound, not inserted, as if they had always been there. The entries now included my station. My name was written once in the margin. I did not remember ever seeing that page before. The captain's handwriting remained steady, but the tone had shifted. Less report, more warning. It said the ocean was not moving ships. It was returning them. I stopped reading for a moment, just listened to the room. The silence felt deliberate. When I returned to the pages, they had changed again. Dates no longer matched history. Some were in the future. Some were missing entirely. And every time I looked away, something shifted in the ink. like it was aware of being observed. The cargo vessel entered harbor without announcement. No radio call. No distress signal. Just appearance. It moved too smoothly for something abandoned, like it still believed it was carrying purpose. We boarded at sunrise. The deck was wet, but there had been no rain. Everything smelled freshly prepared. Food, metal, warm oil, but there was no crew. The bridge was intact. Lights still functioning. Engines still running at low power, as if the ship had simply forgotten to stop. In the galley, meals were plated. Still warm. Steam faint but present. No sign of struggle. No sign of evacuation. Just absence. We called out anyway. Even though no one expected an answer, only the ship responded. Through the radio system. A soft transmission. Breathing. Not speech. Not static. Just breath repeating in slow intervals. Close. Controlled. Alive. One officer tried shutting down the system, but the sound continued even after power was cut. Not through speakers anymore. Through the walls. Below deck, something moved. Slow. Heavy. Not footsteps. Not scraping. More like repositioning. As if the ship itself was adjusting to being watched. We didn't go down. No one needed to suggest it. The silence was enough agreement. The engines kept running. Even after every system was disabled, like something inside had decided motion was still required. When we finally left, no one looked back immediately, but the radio followed us, still breathing, still counting time in quiet intervals, until distance should have ended it. But it didn't. The lighthouse was supposed to be abandoned, offline for years, removed from navigation systems entirely. But it started flashing again, not randomly, not like failure, like code. We saw it from miles away. Thin beam cutting through fog that wasn't moving with wind. Each flash followed a pattern. Old maritime sequences, used by ships that no longer sailed. I checked the registry. Those patterns belonged to missing vessels. Ships that never returned. The lighthouse had no power source listed. No fuel. No grid connection. Still it continued. When we approached, the sea went quiet again. That same listening silence. Even the engine noise felt softer, as if sound itself was being reduced. Then the radios reacted. A message came through, but it was backwards, not reverse playback. Time reverse intention. The words felt like they were trying to become something else before reaching us. Every attempt to decode it made it worse. The signal grew stronger as we got closer, and every ship that had tried before us was gone from radar records. Not marked missing, just absent, as if they had never attempted approach at all. The lighthouse kept flashing, patient, unchanging, like it already knew we would arrive. Satellite images began arriving without request. No one knew who triggered the scans. The ocean looked normal at first glance. Blue, wide, endless, but the clouds above it were wrong. Inverted shapes, like reflections pulled out of alignment. Storm systems that didn't match weather reports. Ships passing through that region stopped responding, not disappearing, just losing time. Hours missing from logs. Minutes erased from instruments. Crew reports became harder to understand. They described seeing another sky beneath the water, not reflection. Layer, a second atmosphere trapped below the surface. We reviewed sonar data. It showed conflicting depths. Two oceans occupying the same space. Then the instruments began failing. Not all at once. In sequence. As if something was shutting them down in order. One technician whispered that the sea was watching us back. No one corrected him, because the screens had already begun showing movement that did not match surface conditions. Something was below, looking upward, and aware of observation. The return vessel was still docked, but its radio system activated without power. We confirmed it twice. No external signal. No active transmission source. Yet the message continued. It came from inside sealed rooms. Not speakers. Not wiring. Inside the structure itself. The voice was layered. Too many voices speaking at once. Some calm. Some broken. Some laughing softly between words. Coordinates repeated in cycles. Always shifting slightly each time. Never stable enough to follow, but familiar enough to recognize as real. When we recorded the audio, it changed. Playback introduced new sounds. Distress calls, overlapping laughter, as if multiple moments were trapped in the same recording. One technician kept listening longer than instructed. He stopped suddenly, said his hearing felt delayed, like the sound had arrived before it was made. The radio kept transmitting even after shutdown attempts. Not louder, closer, as if it no longer needed distance to travel. The first change was subtle. A coastline shifted slightly in an archive map. No one noticed until it happened again. And again, entire islands disappeared overnight. Not erased, rewritten. New shipping routes appeared where deep ocean used to be, lines forming across blank space like decisions made elsewhere. A red ink trace connected missing vessels across regions. No one admitted drawing it, but it kept appearing. Each update made the ocean feel less like geography and more like design, as if someone was editing it while we slept. And every correction removed something we could no longer name. It appeared in the harbor just before sunrise. No arrival signal, no escort, no record of approach, just presence. The hull looked old at first glance. Weathered steel, faded markings, salt stains that suggested decades at sea. But when we checked the registry, nothing matched. No construction file, no shipyard record, no launch date. It had no beginning. Engineers walked around it in slow circles. Their footsteps echoed too sharply against the dock. One of them touched the hull and pulled back immediately, said the metal felt wrong. Too uniform, too perfect, as if it had never been shaped by tools. Serial numbers were stamped along the side, but they looped, digits repeating into themselves without end. When entered into systems, they returned multiple identities, all correct, all conflicting. The ship was in more than one registry at once, and none of them agreed on its origin. Inside, the air was dry, preserved, like something had been waiting inside for a long time without aging, and it felt like the ship was watching us back, not through windows, through structure itself. The fog came in without weather warning. No storm system, no wind shift, just sudden presence along the coast. Thick, low, silent. It moved like it had weight, like it pressed against the ground instead of floating above it. People began hearing names inside it, not shouted, not echoed, whispered gently, as if the fog already knew who was listening. I stood near the shoreline that night. The air felt damp against my skin, colder than it should have been. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. Even lights became soft shapes behind white haze. Then the ships began to vanish, not breaking apart, not sinking, just disappearing the moment they entered the fog. 1 second visible, the next absent. No distress signal followed, only silence where engines should have been. Survivors who made it back described something strange. They said the fog moved like it was walking, not drifting, walking around their vessels, as if searching for something specific, something that matched identity. The name whispers grew clearer the longer the fog stayed, not threatening, recognizing, like it was remembering us one voice at a time. The ship arrived in daylight, clean horizon, clear visibility, and yet something was missing immediately. Its shadow. No reflection under the dock lights, no dark outline beneath its hull, just presence without depth. We thought it was a lighting error at first, until we saw the crew. They had no reflections either. Mirrors brought close to them showed only empty glass. Even camera feeds struggled to render them fully. Images flickered as if refusing to commit. One inspector held a mirror too long. It cracked quietly in his hand. No impact, no drop, just fracture from contact. The crew stood still, watching without expression, not alarmed, not surprised, like they already knew they were incomplete. The air around them felt visually unstable. Edges of their bodies softened, then sharpened again, as if reality couldn't decide how to display them. The ship itself seemed normal otherwise, but normality felt wrong without shadow, like something essential had been removed, and what remained was only outline pretending to exist. The first transmission came through deep-sea equipment. No scheduled contact. No known source. Just signal. Structured. Controlled. Like emergency reporting from somewhere that should not have communication. The voice was distorted by pressure, but still understandable. It spoke of ships, surface vessels, missing vessels, by name, each one confirmed in sequence, each one marked as observed below. The recording suggested origin from impossible depth, far beyond known ocean floor limits. We checked calibration twice. Every reading confirmed the same thing. The signal was coming from underneath everything, not distance away, downward away, like direction itself had changed meaning. Then another message arrived. Short, repeated, not instruction, recognition. Something below the ocean was aware of being heard, and it was responding upward, slowly, patiently. The harbor lights began changing first. Small flickers along the coastline. No scheduled maintenance. No reported activation. But they were responding, not randomly, in patterns. Each ship entering port triggered a response sequence. Light beams shifted direction, as if tracking movement, then repeating it. Morse-like patterns formed across the waterline. Too precise to be malfunction. Too coordinated to be human-controlled. No operators were found in any lighthouse stations. Still, the lights continued, as if something else had taken responsibility for communication. We observed from a distance as a cargo vessel approached. The lights matched its movement exactly. Every adjustment mirrored instantly, like reflection without delay. The ship slowed near docking, and then stopped responding. Not sinking, not drifting, just mid-motion absence. Radar lost it at the same moment. No debris followed. No signal returned. Only silence where impact should have been. The lights continued blinking for several minutes afterward. As if finishing a sentence no one was left to hear. They brought the sailors in under observation, not because they resisted, but because they didn't stop speaking. Not words, not language, numbers, slow, measured, like counting something only they could see. Each voice sounded slightly different, but all of them followed the same rhythm. Coordinate patterns repeating without pause. When written down, they almost formed maps. Almost. But every attempt to plot them shifted mid-interpretation. Lines moving as if the ocean refused to stay fixed. One sailor paused suddenly, looked directly at me, and repeated a sequence that felt too personal. Not familiar in meaning. Familiar in intent. Like it was meant for someone standing exactly where I was. We tried isolating them, separating one voice from the others. It didn't help. The numbers still aligned, even in silence, as if they were continuing internally, without permission. The first report said it arrived in the northern harbor. Calm entry. No incident. 2 hours later, another report came in. Same ship, southern harbor, identical vessel, same name, same registry code. Both crews insisted they were original. Both ships were real. We confirmed visually, then confirmed again. They existed at the same time, in different places, but with shared identity. Their logs matched perfectly at first inspection, then diverged in small ways. A missing sentence here, a different timestamp there, like one version had experienced slightly more time than the other. Then one of the ships began changing, slow corrosion appearing on the hull overnight, wood and metal aging unevenly. The other remained untouched, as if time had chosen sides. When we compared readings between them, systems failed. Not crash failure, confusion failure. Reality could not reconcile duplication. And around both harbors, the air felt unstable, like distance itself was unsure which version to keep. The submarine descent began normally, stable pressure, clean readings, until depth increased beyond known safe range. Then sound stopped, not reduced, not muffled, stopped. The crew noticed it first. No engine hum, no hull resonance, only internal silence, like the ocean had removed vibration from existence. Then came the breathing, faint, far away, not through equipment, through absence itself, a rhythm forming where nothing should transmit. Instruments began shutting down one by one, not failure alerts, just silence replacing function. The pilot reported feeling pressure outside the hull, not physical pressure, awareness pressure, like something nearby had realized they were inside it. The vessel slowed, not by command, by resistance. Something was moving without sound around them, not attacking, not contacting, just existing in proximity too close to measure. And the deeper they went, the less reality behaved like surface rules applied. The cargo ship returned without announcement, but its deck was different, heavier, lower in the waterline than recorded. We found sealed crates stacked below deck, metal reinforced, no labeling except dates, future dates, not past, not present, future. When we tried scanning them, equipment blurred. Images refused to resolve. Only outlines appeared, soft shapes that disappeared when focused on directly. Opening one crate was discouraged immediately, but one was forced anyway. The moment it opened, several observers forgot why they were there. Not memory loss like illness, more like removal of context. The crate's contents were never fully seen. Every report described something different afterward. Some said light, some said water, some said nothing at all, but all agreed on one thing. What was inside did not stay inside perception for long. Guards refused to stand near the remaining crates after that. Not fear of contents. Fear of remembering incorrectly. The storm arrived without forecast. No pressure shift. No warning pattern. Just sudden atmospheric collapse. Clouds moved in unnatural layers, stacked like broken reflections of weather systems. Lightning revealed shapes inside the storm. Ship silhouettes, but not moving like ships should. Drifting through space that wasn't consistent. Some appeared upside down, some sideways, all briefly visible, then gone. Radar showed impossible readings. Multiple oceans overlapping in single coordinates. The sea beneath the storm behaved like openings, not surface disturbance. Entry points. Ships entering the storm disappeared instantly. No transmission, no wreckage, just absence in real time. The storm felt less like weather and more like access, a passage being used repeatedly, not by wind, by something else entirely. And every time lightning struck, it felt less like nature reacting and more like something confirming arrivals. They found him walking along the shoreline before sunrise, barefoot, slow, covered in salt that looked too old to still be wet. He didn't react when we approached. Just kept staring at the horizon like it owed him something. The missing expedition he led had been gone for years. No signal, no debris, no confirmed path. Now he was back, but only him. His eyes didn't focus properly. Not blind, not injured, just distant, like part of him was still out at sea. He spoke without being asked, said the others were still sailing, still continuing, like the journey never stopped. His shadow moved late behind him, not matching his steps. It stretched a second too slowly, then caught up. We tried taking notes, but the ink on the page faded while we wrote, like his story refused to stay recorded. He drew maps in the sand instead, lines shifting even as he completed them. Every wave erased parts of it, but not evenly. Some sections remained, unwanted memory carved into shore. When we told him he was safe now, he shook his head. Not fear, not denial. Warning. He said the sea doesn't release anything. It only pauses distance. And then he begged us not to take him back. Even though no one had mentioned returning, the vessel was docked for inspection when it started changing. At first, we thought it was structural stress, metal expanding in heat, hull adjusting after long travel. But the pattern was wrong. Rhythmic, like breathing, slow expansion, then contraction, the entire ship moving as one organism. Engineers stopped speaking mid-analysis, just stared at readings they couldn't classify. The hull creaked again, not cracking, settling, like ribs shifting under unseen pressure. We placed sensors along the deck. They picked up a steady pulse, not mechanical, biological. Crew members still aboard reported hearing heartbeat like thuds through their boots. No one confirmed where it came from. The ship didn't respond to shutdown commands, because nothing on board behaved like a system anymore. It behaved like a body, unaware of being observed, but responsive to presence. When we stepped closer, the breathing slowed, as if noticing us watching, then resumed only after distance increased. Carefully, like it was learning how to exist around witnesses. The ship docked perfectly, too perfectly. No damage, no drift, no error. But when we tried boarding, the doors didn't lead anywhere consistent. Each entry opened into different interiors. A storage room, a corridor, an empty ocean view that shouldn't exist inside steel. Every attempt changed the layout. No pattern, no repetition. Time inside felt unstable. Seconds stretched, then collapsed. One inspector entered and did not return the same way. He came out through a different hatch miles away on the vessel, disoriented, silent, said he didn't recognize the ship anymore, even though it was the same one. We realized something unsettling. The ship wasn't relocating people. It was rearranging paths. Inside itself, like memory rewritten through architecture. After that, no one entered alone. But even together, they never exited the same. Deep scans began returning anomalies, layers beneath the seabed that shouldn't exist. Another ocean, hidden under ours. Not metaphor, structure. The readings showed movement inside it, slow, coordinated. And then came the confirmation. Missing ships appeared there, alive, moving through water that mirrored ours but didn't match it. They didn't seem aware of the surface world above. They continued sailing as if nothing had changed, as if they had never left their original journey. We attempted communication. Signals failed immediately. Every message returned distorted, looped back incomplete, like something intercepted meaning before formed. And deep within those readings, something appeared to be watching both layers, not inside either ocean, but between them, observing separation itself. The final files arrived without request. No sender, no origin stamp, just correction. All previous disappearance records were marked invalid, not erased, corrected. Ships had not vanished. They had never fully left. They existed in transition, always moving, never arriving. The returns were not rescues. They were adjustments, reality catching up to itself. Archives began rewriting in real time, names shifting, dates dissolving, as if history was being edited while remembered. And then I saw it, my own station logs changing, slowly, quietly, including entries I did not write. The ocean reports were no longer external. They were becoming observation of me, because the final truth wasn't about the ships. It was about where observation ends, and what begins when the sea notices the ones watching it. I stepped away from the console, but the screen stayed on, still updating, still correcting. And in the last line that appeared before everything froze, it listed my own vessel, already marked as missing.